Hey everyone, it's George from Blockchain DXB and today is the 7th of December 2022 and the global cryptocurrency market has gone down even further. Now look guys, I was really hoping the final month of 2022 does have some bullish indication, but there is some terrible matrix, particularly to do with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin holders realized 14x more losses than profits recently. So definitely not ideal for Bitcoin, and in today's episode we are going to be discussing an insight by Glassnodes. So what happens is every Mondays they tend to release a weekly insights, and in that they provide a weekly snapshot of what is going on in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So we'll very briefly look at that, and along with Glassnodes you also have CoinShares, which has a weekly blog, and unfortunately both of the news are not so positive for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Now in Africa there is an update regarding central bank digital currencies, and to be honest, this is one of the dangers of having central bank digital currencies, and we'll very quickly explore what is it that the government can do with central bank digital currencies. Now regarding Chainlink, we do have some minor positive update, and that is to do with staking rewards, and they do have some new matrix. So most likely a positive news for Link holders if you have been in the Chainlink for a very long time. Now look guys, I must have to admit that Chainlink has the best memes in the cryptocurrency space. So go to the Facebook group. They do have one of the best memes in the entire cryptocurrency industry. Now regarding UAE, unfortunately I could not find absolutely any new news that was relevant for this podcast. So what I'm going to be doing is, I still will be covering two news, but I'm going to be explaining some of the basic elements of Bitcoin. So the first news that I'm be covering is, I'm going to be exploring who could be Satoshi Nakamoto, why he matters and why he does not. And look guys, over the course of time, the new software developers, the new software engineers are definitely technically much better than Satoshi Nakamoto. So we'll be explore that in today's episode. And the second news is where I go and explore the Bitcoin price volatility. So we'll be looking at the whole demand versus supply of Bitcoin, and these are some of the basics which I think is so critical to truly understand what Bitcoin is. And one thing which I often echo in my podcast is, once you truly understand what Bitcoin is, you would truly understand what it is not. And that is why I do want to explain the basics of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So let's kickstart today's episode. So welcome everyone, it's 18 you're in Dubai and you're listening to Crypto and Coffee at 8, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And how this series of episodes under Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the browse of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi and Metaverse. And this is followed by Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. And every Fridays guys, I do have an episode called as Metaverse Everything, where we solely focus on Metaverse. So please check out those episodes as well. The format for Metaverse Everything is completely different, and I tend to publish a daily and weekly report via my LinkedIn. So please follow me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile is in the show notes below. But before we kickstart today's episode, I have an important message, so check this out. Firstly guys, Startup OI is global one tech platform for tech. It offers global high-paying tech jobs with flexibility in working time and location, global free tech events, and tech networks to connect with global like-minded engineers. A brilliant platform to listen to the tech experts in Metaverse and to grab their insights. Now listen, all you have to do is download the app Startup OI. If you're using an Android version, go to Google Store and App Store for iOS devices. Alternatively, you can also click on the show notes below to download Startup OI. Next, guys, listen, if you're into fitness, if you're into adventure, if you want to do something wild but still want to keep your health in check, there is a new podcast in town, a podcast focusing on obstacle course race in the Middle East. The podcast is called Rise in the Obstacle Course Race, and Rise in the Obstacle Course Race podcast is a peer-to-peer community-driven podcast where they talk all about obstacle course race in the Middle East, from Sandstorm to Spartan Race, from Tough Mudder to Desert Warrior Challenge, and also the Government Gov Games, and quite a lot more. The podcast has interviews with athletes locally and internationally to get inside scoop on how athletes prepare for obstacle course race. In the podcast, they also talk about interesting stories on why they are motivated to do obstacle course race. And that's not all. They also plan to release 7 NFTs. And these NFTs are no ordinary. These NFTs will represent every emirate in the UAE. And listen guys, these NFTs are going to be absolutely massive. So do one thing, go to Spotify, go to iTunes, go to any leading podcasting platform and search for Rise in the Obstacle Course Race podcast. And finally guys, not your keys, not your crypto. If you have dabbled with cryptocurrencies and now are seriously getting to protect your cryptocurrencies, there is no better way to protect it by using a hardware wallet. And this is where Ledger Wallet kicks in. And Ledger Wallets are hardware cryptocurrency wallets made by Ledger, a company headquartered in Paris, France. And Ledger's hardware wallets are multi-currency wallets that are used to store private keys for cryptocurrencies offline. And Ledger offers 2 hardware wallets, the Ledger Nano and Ledger Nano X wallets. They are world-class experts with extensive crypto security backgrounds. They continuously look for vulnerabilities in Ledger products in a constant effort to improve the level of security. Now, in today's world, securing these digital assets is a critical challenge, and this is where Ledger kicks in. So click the link below to buy your hardware wallet and support this podcast. It is a brilliant way to support this podcast. So what are you waiting for? The link is in the show notes below. Now, since we have taken care of that, let's look at the global cryptocurrency market. Now, since the last 24 hours, the global cryptocurrency market has gone down. It has gone down marginally by 1.32%, and as of today, it is at $840.45 billion. Now, since the last 24 hours, the total crypto market volume is $39.53 billion, and since the last 24 hours, it has gone up by 7.78%, which means there is a lot of selling going on. If you look at the volume in DeFi, it is once again ridiculously low to $2.51 billion. Gone are the days where the total volume in DeFi used to hover between $16 to $20 billion. I really am not sure when we'll be looking at that matrix. Hopefully by 2025, I do see that DeFi tends to pick up its pace. Now, as of today, the total value locked is $41.47 billion, and MakerDAO accounts for 15.08%, with $6.26 billion locked in its protocol. Now, DeFi accounts for 6.35% of the total crypto market 24-hour volume. Now, look guys, in an idealistic world, once the separation of money and state happens, I do feel that the total volume of DeFi should account for over 40 to 50% of the total cryptocurrency market. The majority of the chunk, I do feel, should be Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum. That's how in an idealistic world, the global cryptocurrency market matrix should look like. And most likely that might take at least a couple of decades. Now let's look at the top 5 protocols that are connected to DeFi, and I'm only taking into consideration the total value locked. We already looked at MakerDAO. The second one is Lido, and the total value locked is $5.97 billion. Aave is third at $3.76 billion. Corp at number 4 at $3.69 billion, and Uniswap is at $3.43 billion. The biggest worry, guys, once again this entire week is the volume of stable coins. Apart from the volume being ridiculously low, it also accounts for a majority of the chunk of the total cryptocurrency market volume, and this is what I did mention just a few minutes ago. Ideally, it should be Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrencies or even DeFi protocols that accounts for a majority of the chunk. Hopefully in the next couple of decades, we might see that happen. Now, the volume of stablecoins is at $36.60 billion, and out of that, Tether USDT accounts for $27.80 billion, followed by Circle's USDC at $2.41 billion and Binance USD at $5.97 billion. Now guys, let's quickly look at the market share and the 24-hour trading volume between Bitcoin and Ethereum. And one reason why I started to do this is because I was hoping that after the Ethereum London hard fork, where the supply of Ethereum is cleverly managed, I was hoping that one fine day Ethereum will flip Bitcoin. Now my timelines have been completely shattered because based on my timeline, Ethereum should have flipped Bitcoin by now, but looks like there's another 12 to 18 months to go, or maybe even longer when Ethereum flips Bitcoin. As of today, 7th of December, Bitcoin's market share is $323 billion, whereas Ethereum's market share is at $150 billion. The 24-hour trading volume of Bitcoin is $21.4 billion, whereas Ethereum's 24-hour trading volume is $5.96 billion, or roughly around $6 billion. The the dominance between Bitcoin and Ethereum is pretty much the same. Bitcoin's dominance is 38.30%. Ethereum's dominance is at 18.02%. Now let's quickly look at the market cap of privacy coins. Monero still an outlier with $2.62 billion locked. Zcash is at $706 million. Decred at $302 million. Mask Network at $238 million. And Harmony at $183 million. And guys, just a quick story. When Zcash was launched, the day Zcash was launched, the entire week, the price of Zcash was more than double of that of Bitcoin, and this goes back to 2016 before the halving. So Zcash at one point of time was almost double the price of Bitcoin, but fast forwarded to now, Zcash is nowhere close to even 1/10 of the price of Bitcoin. But that being said, it does have some really strong fundamentals and some really strong technological aspects in its privacy preserving protocols. Now let's look at the king of all kings, that is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is currently at $16,809, and yesterday we talked about how it has barely crossed the $17,000 mark. Now, since the last 24 hours, it is down by 1.03%. Since the last 7 days, it is down by 0.43%. Ethereum is at $1,228. Since the last 24 hours, it is down by 2.13%. Since the last 7 days, it is down by 3.09%. And Binance Coin surprisingly has been steady, particularly after the FTX collapse. But when the FTX collapse happened, or rather few days before the FTX collapse happened, the price of Binance did actually shot up. And this was when CZ tweeted that they are on the verge of helping or buying FTX. At that point of time, Binance could have reached a new all-time high. It did go down, but since the last few weeks, it is rather steady. And since the last 24 hours, it is down by 1.60%. Since the last 7 days, it is down by 5.49%. So look guys, December is not having the ideal start as I was anticipating, and Bitcoin holders realized 14x more losses than profits recently. Now if you want to go back in time, and you don't have to travel back in time too much, on 20th of October 2021, Glassnode did actually mention via Twitter that as of 20th of October 2021, 99.70% of the Bitcoin supply was currently in profit. Now fast forward to 6th of December, a little over a year, they have once again mentioned via the weekly insights, but this time the news is absolutely horrendous. What they have stated is that Bitcoin holders have realized 14x more losses than profits recently, and this is because of reaching a new all-time high, the Terra Luna collapse and the FTX collapse. So definitely not looking good. And if you look at it, if you're a detractor of Bitcoin, you would be wondering why on earth would you want to have Bitcoin as a world reserve currency, because other cryptocurrencies is having so much of an impact on the price of Bitcoin. So I also agree that having Bitcoin as a world reserve currency may not be ideal. Now the second matrix is also scary regarding Bitcoin, and CoinShares, they have mentioned via the blog through Medium that the assets under management in short Bitcoin fell by $27 million last week. But a minor sign of hope is that sentiment towards Bitcoin did improve last week, with inflows totaling $11 million. So what I'd really recommend you to do is, if you're a technical nerd and if you want to look at the technical numbers, go through Glassnode's website, read through the insight, and then go to CoinShares weekly blog, which is published by a Medium. It does give you a very good indication, and then based on that make your own decision. Now Seeking Alpha, what they have done is they have tried to compare it with US stocks, and what they have said is that Bitcoin remains below the 200-day moving average and disconnect from US stocks. So currently Bitcoin is lagging behind the US stocks, but unfortunately it looks like the US stocks are slowly starting to show signs of recovery following a protracted period of risk of sentiment. Now look guys, if you're a detractor of Bitcoin, you'll definitely be bashing these numbers. And one of the detractors of Bitcoin, that is Peter Schiff, he took on to Twitter to say that Bitcoin is not a threat to dollar. It's only a threat to the net worth of those who want to buy it. Now look guys, I personally like Peter Schiff. Now you might dislike what he says, but he does make some really valid points. Now, what I really recommend you to do is listen to Peter Schiff's podcast. He's a massive advocate of gold, but some of the points that he says is spot on and accurate. Now, guys, let's talk about some news regarding central bank digital currencies. Now, look, guys, after the second half of 2023, I do feel that central bank digital currencies will be the talk, not just in the fintech space, but also in the cryptocurrency space. Now, in yesterday's episode, we did talk about a central bank digital currency news all the way from Pakistan. And today, there is a news regarding Nigeria. Now, what happened a year ago, Nigeria did launch a central bank digital currency project called as e-Naira, but it has now capped cash withdrawals to get more people to go cashless. And this is the power that the governments can have. They can decide what amount can be put, what amount can be restricted in a matter of minutes. But what Nigeria has done is that they have imposed limits on cash withdrawals in a move to push consumers towards alternatives, including its own central bank digital currencies. So the official information via the Central Bank of Nigeria states that the new limits on over-the-counter withdrawals at just $225 per week for individuals and roughly around $1,123 for businesses. Now, these are some of the drawbacks of using central bank digital currencies, because what a state can do is, because it is programmable money, they can make any of these changes in just a matter of minutes. Now listen, guys, if you do want to find out more information about central bank digital currencies, I do have an episode explaining central bank digital currencies at the very basic level. So please feel free to read through that. And apart from that, earlier today, Block Data has also released a report that discusses the state of central bank digital currencies in 2022. It gives useful information how central banks around the world are dealing with the knotty issue of central bank digital currencies, and they've taken into consideration the United States of America, the European Union, Japan, Canada, India, and quite a lot more. It also discusses crucial information with companies that are partnering with central banks to issue central bank digital currencies. So what I'm going to be doing is, in my follow-up episode on central bank digital currencies, I'm going to be taking a lot of information from this report. So definitely brilliant article. Now the next news, guys, that I'd like to talk about is Chainlink. Now look, guys, if you are following Chainlink on Facebook, you must admit that they have, if not, one of the best memes in the cryptocurrency space. Now what happened yesterday is that Chainlink announced that it has started staking, and roughly around 7 million Link tokens were locked in just a matter of 30 minutes. So a total of $51 million of inflow has seen in the staking program. Now this program opens for general access on 8th of December. What will happen is, it will let people earn rewards in order to maintain the protocol's performance and keep it more secure. So what's going to happen is, people who have staked their funds in Chainlink protocol will be unable to unlock or move the Link rewards until the next version of the protocol is released, which is expected to be roughly around 9 to 12 months from now. What I really recommend you to do is, if you're someone who's interested in staking some of your Link in Chainlink protocol, read through the blog. And this is the official blog. It does provide loads of useful information. And CoinDesk, one of the leading online publications, did actually state that Chainlink plans to scale up to 75 million Link over time. Some 500 million tokens are already currently in circulation. Now, unfortunately, this did not have any price movement so far as the Link token is concerned, but hopefully over the weekend, I'm pretty much sure there'll be some movement so far as the price of Link is concerned. Now, guys, let's look at two news from UAE, and both the news is an explanation by me, that is Blockchain DXB. Now, the first news, what I'd like to discuss is who could be Satoshi Nakamoto, why he matters and why he doesn't. And it's so critical, I do think, that we truly need to understand the basics of what Bitcoin is. So let me try to explain who is Satoshi Nakamoto and who could possibly be Satoshi Nakamoto. And Satoshi Nakamoto did publish his white paper, but do you know which website did he publish the white paper in? Now, Satoshi Nakamoto used a mailing list on the website, and the website that he used is metsdao.com, which is M for mother, E for elephant, T for tango, Z for zebra, D for David, O for orange, W for water, D for David.com. So essentially, he had a mailing list in this website, so people subscribe to his mailing list, And in that mailing list, he did release the white paper. Now, one thing to note is that Satoshi Nakamoto used a very unique email address called as satoshi@gmx.com. So it's Satoshi followed by the alphabet N, that is N for November, at gmx.com. That is G for George, M for Mother, X for X-ray.com. Now listen guys, at this point of time, I'm pretty much sure you would know how to identify who Satoshi Nakamoto is. All he needs to do is he needs to sign into the private key, which will give him access to the public key, which will give him access to the public address. Simple as that. But at this point of time, we do not know who Satoshi Nakamoto is. So I'm going to share some names who most likely could be Satoshi Nakamoto. The first name that pops into the mind is Hal Finney. Now Hal Finney was the very first person who Satoshi Nakamoto sent the transaction to. But currently, he is in a cryo chamber, which means legally he passed away, but his body is preserved in a cryo chamber. Could it be possible that with new invention in technology, we could get him back from the dead? If that thing happens, we would truly know if Hal Finney was Satoshi Nakamoto or not. The second person who I personally think is Satoshi Nakamoto is Adam Back. Now, Adam Back is the CEO of Blockchain, and he's also British. And ironically, when you look at the Bitcoin white paper, the language used does resemble to someone who is British, but he has clearly denied that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. The third person who could be Satoshi Nakamoto is a person called Wei Day, and Satoshi often thanked him. Here's the interesting bit, guys. No one knows who Wei Day is. He's still mysterious. And if you're using Ethereum, I'm pretty much sure that you know that Wei is named after Wei Day. So really, I'm not sure who Wei Day is. Could he be Satoshi Nakamoto? Most likely, yes. The fourth person is Sergey Nazarov, and he was the guy who created Chainlink, and something which we discussed earlier in today's episode, where they have issued the staking programs and quite a lot of other. Now, Sergey Nazarov did actually book the smart contract domain name, that is www.smartcontract.com, 2 years before Bitcoin was created. That is a really strong indication that he could be Satoshi Nakamoto. But if you look at the age difference, it's very unlikely that he could be Satoshi Nakamoto, because I believe right now Sergey Nazarov is roughly around 28 or 30 years old. Now it's very unlikely that Sergey Nazarov could be Satoshi Nakamoto, because he would have done all these things when he was roughly around 16 to 18 years old. And based on the communication that Satoshi Nakamoto did have with other people, it does look like Satoshi Nakamoto was definitely well over 30 years old. The next person is Dr. Craig White. Now, he's the only guy who claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto, but unfortunately, there is no way for him to back his claim. The other person I can think of is Nick Szabo. And Nick Szabo is the creator of BitGold. And Satoshi Nakamoto often thanked him for his work in BitGold, and unfortunately, it's unclear if he's Satoshi Nakamoto. The next person who I think has the second most chances of being Satoshi Nakamoto is Gavin Anderson. Now, Gavin Anderson currently is not active in the Bitcoin and blockchain space, but ever since Satoshi disappeared, he gave all the communication rights to Gavin Anderson. So that's one of the reasons why people do think that Gavin Anderson most likely could be Satoshi Nakamoto, because he gave all the communication details onto Gavin Anderson. The next person who I can think of is David Chaum. Now, David Chaum is the creator of Hashcash, and recently also created XX Messenger, and something which I'm trying to incorporate in my protocol as well. And he was in Abu Dhabi just a few weeks ago at a massive Abu Dhabi FinTech Summit, which was, if not one of the biggest events so far as FinTech is concerned. And he did talk about central bank digital currencies, and David Chaum, guys, currently is also working on the central bank digital currency project with privacy-related protocols as well. So could David Chaum be Satoshi Nakamoto? What are your thoughts, guys? Mention them in the comments below. And if there are any names that I might have missed, please mention them in the comments below. Now, that being said, it's not important to know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, because essentially what Satoshi Nakamoto did, he compiled work on cryptography, hashing algorithm, and mathematics. As time went by, the current software engineers are definitely much better than Satoshi Nakamoto, and future engineers will be much better than him. If you look at some of the Ethereum developers, they're definitely technically much superior than Satoshi Nakamoto is. And in one sense, the community is better without Satoshi Nakamoto, and it's always better to have anonymity. So when you talk about the ethos of having a pure peer-to-peer electronic cash system, it's best to let the community decide the future and direction of the course. Now my big question is, could it be possible that the CIA may have invented Bitcoin? What are your thoughts? Mention them in the comments below. Now look guys, the secure hashing algorithm 256 that Bitcoin uses was created by one of the arms in the government. So go to Google and look at who created SHA-256 or secure hashing algorithm 256, secure hashing algorithm 512, and quite a lot of other. And if you look at the Bitcoin white paper, it's 9 pages long and it only has 8 references to previous authors. So essentially what Satoshi Nakamoto did, he just compiled cryptography, hashing algorithm, and mathematics. So he was definitely brilliant in compiling all of these things. So definitely brilliant move. Now the next thing what I'd like to discuss, and this is again going back to the basics of Bitcoin, and I want to share the price volatility, and this is purely to do with demand versus supply of Bitcoin. And look guys, all price predictions are 100% right 50% of the time, and it all goes back to the basics of how price predictions work. But let me go back to the very basics of what Bitcoin is. So Bitcoin essentially is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which means if you want to send funds to another person, there is no central intermediary involved, no KYCs, there is fees, but most important to know is the transactions cannot be stopped. But when you talk about the price volatility, let's compare it with the US dollar, and this is going back to the very basics between fiat currencies and Bitcoin. So far as fiat currency is concerned, such as the US dollar, the Great British Pounds, the Indian rupees or the dirhams, the supply is unlimited or variable. Because of that, the demand is also unlimited and variable. And the fact is, government can print money at will, and often they do. But when it comes to Bitcoin, the biggest thing to remember is the demand versus supply. The supply of Bitcoin is fixed, and there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, and you cannot print more. And that's precisely the reason why the demand keeps fluctuating. Because the supply is fixed, the demand and the price keeps fluctuating. Because there is no central entity involved, because there is no company involved, what crypto influencers, what celebrities, multimillionaires and billionaires tend to do is they acquire Bitcoin and they want to pump up the demand for it. And that's one of the reasons why in yesterday's podcast also I mentioned it's so critical that you truly understand whom you are following. So let's say if you're following Peter Schiff, you will try to follow what Peter Schiff is doing. But let's say if you were to follow Tim Draper or Elon Musk, you would try to follow what they are doing. So it's so critical to truly understand that the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, the demand keeps fluctuating, and celebrities, crypto influencers try to manipulate that in order to get their own benefits multiplied. And the only reason the price of Bitcoin is volatile is because the supply is fixed. The demand varies because of news, propaganda, fake news, rumors, and partnership. And look guys, in 2019, 1st of April, there was a fake news regarding ETF, and ever since that date, the price of Bitcoin has been pumping up. There was a tweet which said that the SEC had a sudden meeting to go ahead and issue an ETF, and immediately after the fake news, the price of Bitcoin started to pump. And it's so critical that when you listen to Michael Saylor, you truly need to understand that he already has Bitcoin. Because there is no central entity involved, he's trying to post a lot of information regarding Bitcoin so that his followers would believe him and they would end up buying Bitcoin, because of which the price of Bitcoin would increase, and because of that, his existing net value in Bitcoin would increase. So it's so critical that you truly understand how Bitcoin's basics, that is demand and supply, work. And if you follow people on LinkedIn, listen to podcasts, do not take them at their own value. Try to do your own research, and surprisingly, you will identify that all price predictions are 100% right 50% of the time. And based on the demand in social media, you listen to TikTok, you watch YouTube videos, existing Bitcoin whales do know when to manipulate the market. At this point of time, unfortunately, ultra high net individuals, hedge fund managers, institutional funds can easily play the demand versus supply game, but the demand need not be related to Bitcoin. It could be an unrelated news, and that could also artificially create the demand in Bitcoin and the prices would increase. So it's so critical that you truly understand what Bitcoin is. That way you would know what Bitcoin is not. Now listen guys, if you do want to find out any basic level information about Bitcoin, go to Jameson and Lob's website. Trust me, it would cover 90% of everything that you need to know about Bitcoin. So that's all for today guys in the Crypto and Coffee at 8 from Blockchain DXB. In case if you have any feedback or suggestions, please drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com. You can also check out my website, that is www.blockchaindxb.com, and also check out my other website, that is area2071.com, that talks everything about Metaverse. And if you like listening to this, please follow this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. Now for the next few minutes is going to be an Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. So let's kick start with the Ask Me Anything series. Hey everyone, this is George from Blockchain DXB. You're listening to the Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And how this series of episodes on the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE and Middle East, and the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and Metaverse. And this is followed by Ask Me Anything series that you're listening to right now, where you listeners can ask any questions from the cryptocurrency world. I have a question by Daniel who asks, do you think if any other country adopts Bitcoin a legal tender, it would pump the price of Bitcoin at least temporarily? Now Daniel, I do not think that making Bitcoin a legal tender is a right move. And one thing which I often tell each and every one of my clients is, forget about the price of Bitcoin. And I know it's so easier said than done, but try to understand the basics and the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Now to answer your question, will making Bitcoin a legal tender pump the price of Bitcoin? And unfortunately no, Daniel, because when El Salvador did actually make Bitcoin a legal tender, when it was officially made a Bitcoin a legal tender, there was a 90 days grace period after the law got passed. When it was officially made a legal tender, the price of Bitcoin did fall down by over $10,000 the very same day. The entire global cryptocurrency market completely crashed. So making Bitcoin a legal tender will definitely not help the price of Bitcoin. What it will do is, when the news gets announced, it will temporarily pump the price of Bitcoin. And something which I mentioned earlier in the podcast as well, this is where celebrities, multimillionaires, ultra high net worthy individuals, and people like Michael Saylor, who have no information about Bitcoin, will start promoting Bitcoin as the future of money. Temporarily, it would pump the price of Bitcoin, and these guys would sell the Bitcoins, and the price of Bitcoin will crash. Now, historically, making Bitcoin a legal tender has not made any impact. On the contrary, it has actually dumped the price of Bitcoin. Now, what I'd really recommend you to do is, Daniel, try to listen to Andreas Antonopoulos' take on why making Bitcoin a legal tender is not ideal. The very ethos and the foundation of having Bitcoin in the first place is having freedom. So forcing someone to accept Bitcoin as a legal tender goes against the very ethos of using Bitcoin in the first place. So to answer your question, I don't think making Bitcoin a legal tender will be ideal. It will temporarily pump the price of Bitcoin, but in the long run, definitely not ideal. And a few weeks ago, Daniel, I did talk about Bitcoin Cash, which was officially being made a legal tender in one of the islands. I'm trying to recollect the name. Unfortunately, that news did not turn out to be favorable for Bitcoin Cash. As a matter of fact, Daniel, Coinbase in US did actually announce that they are planning to remove Bitcoin Cash because there is less of demand. So making Bitcoin a legal tender will definitely not help. And this is to do with any Bitcoin, be it, let's say, Bitcoin Satoshi version, Bitcoin Cash, or any other forks, or even Bitcoin. I don't think it'll pump the price of Bitcoin. Temporarily, because of the news, it might pump the price of Bitcoin, and that's when a lot of the existing people who have Bitcoin, the OGs of Bitcoin, the whales of Bitcoin, they would start beginning to dump. So to answer your question, Daniel, unfortunately, no, I don't think so. Making Bitcoin a legal tender will pump the price of Bitcoin. So that's all for today, guys, on the Ask Me Anything series from Blockchain DXB. In case if you have any feedback or suggestions, please drop me an email to info@blockchaindxb.com, and also check out my website www.blockchaindxb.com, and also check out my other website, that is area2071.com, that talks everything about metaverse. And if you like listening to this podcast, please click on the follow button, give it a 5-star rating, and share the word across. And remember, guys, Monday to Thursdays, 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. we have Crypto and Coffee at 8, where we cover top news and information pertaining to Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and metaverse. And how the series of episodes on the Crypto and Coffee at 8 works is, we usually cover some top news and information pertaining to the price of cryptocurrencies, some major breaking news, occasionally short and sweet news as well, news that has an impact in the cryptocurrency world. The other two news and information is related to Dubai, UAE, and Middle East in the world of Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and metaverse. And what you're listening to right now is the Ask Me Anything series, where you listeners can ask any questions regarding Bitcoin, blockchain, beyond blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, DeFi, and metaverse. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and have a great day. Bye-bye.